Welcome to Leaders Lift, episode 42. This is my first episode of the new year, January 3rd, 2024. Now, this is the podcast for any of you looking to get more out of life, work on your personal development plans, professional development plans, be a better leader, or just get more. So I'm Greg Cunningham. Thanks for joining me for today's episode. Now, this week I want to wrap up my 4-part series of tools that can help you as you do end of year or any time assessments and as you build new plans to move forward. As a quick recap, part 1 was about comparisons and the dangers of comparing ourselves to others and comparing ourselves to ourselves. Yes, ourselves to ourselves. Now, part 2 was the concept of a minimum viable plan. And this is the idea that we need to build a plan that has plenty of flexibility and allows us to learn quickly, either from success or failure. It doesn't really matter which. Actually, it does, but you want to learn from both and do so quickly. And then build momentum and adapt as needed. Plus, then you can iterate as you go along. Part 3 was about focusing on what matters most so that we can make meaningful progress instead of getting caught up in being busy and getting caught on that path of false progress. And I defined false versus meaningful progress in that episode. And that was not last week, but 2 weeks ago. Now today, part 4 is about letting go to get more. This is important because it's so easy for us to feel like we have to take on everything to make progress. Or we fall into the, if you want something done right, you have to do it yourself trap. Or we even think that if I say no or pass on an assignment or a good thing, I'll miss out. And those are all traps that we can all fall into. So as you build new plans, I hope that this will help you to really focus on those things that matter most and to push aside those good things that will really just be busy work and not make the kind of difference that other things might. Now, before we get started, just a reminder to do all the things. Check out the show notes, like, subscribe, follow, share the show. And provide me any feedback that you have. I'd love to have that. Definitely pay attention to all of that stuff. Now, I want to start off today's conversation with a quote and a concept. And first, the quote. Now, whether you like Steve Jobs and Apple or not, he definitely had an impact on the world. I mean, just think about the state of the smartphone today. He's known for a lot of things, but one quote that has had an impact on me is the following. He said, "People think focus means saying yes to the thing you've got to focus on. But that's not what it means at all. It means saying no to the 100 other good ideas that there are. You have to pick carefully. I'm actually as proud of the things we haven't done as the things we have done. Innovation is saying no to 1,000 things." Now, this quote leads into a concept I first heard from a church leader, Dallin H. Oaks. In a talk he gave about prioritization and making the best choices, he talked about how in the old school catalogs, many products had 3 levels of quality. There was a good level, which was the cheapest. Then there was a better level, which was a little more expensive. And then the best quality, which was the most expensive of all. So if you wanted a pair of shoes, you chose which quality level you wanted to pay for. Now, if you combine these two things, the quote and this concept, it starts to illustrate what I'm trying to get at in this episode. Instead of shoes, think about our decision-making progress or how we choose to spend our time. Now, note that I'm deliberately leaving out the bad choices, choosing bad things. I think I'll just leave that aside. It just simplifies this discussion. Now, back to decisions. We can make good decisions, better decisions, or the best decisions. We can choose to focus on the things that are good, better, or best. We can allocate our limited time and energy to things that keep us busy, things that are important, or things that will make the biggest difference in our lives. Now, we're going to focus on and make decisions in all 3 of these levels. We have to. We've got to do the dishes, for example, if we want to have clean plates for dinner. Not exactly a life-changing thing, but still needs to be done. So it's a good thing, but it's not maybe the best thing. So what is the key here? And let's go back to Steve Jobs. What we need to learn to do is to say no to the good or better things that don't have to be done in order to allow ourselves to focus on the best things or the things that will make the biggest difference. Now, one of the biggest reasons we have to say no is that our time, energy, and resources are finite. Unless you're talking about the energy of a 2-year-old, which seems to be infinite, especially at bedtime. So, finite resources. Another big reason is that we actually tend to gravitate to the things that are easiest, which rarely fall into the have the biggest impact category. They're almost always going to be that lower end good things. If you combine these two things, then we end up spending so much time on the easy and good things that we may leave very little time for the things that are better and those that are best or that make the biggest difference. Now let's talk through a couple of examples. Last week, as of this episode dropping, was the week of Christmas. As I started to think about that week, I got thinking about how I was going to balance my podcast work, this one, and Gadgets for Families, as well as some other work I could be doing for clients. Plus, balance that with having all of my family around for the holidays and other things that kind of go along with this time of year. My first instinct was to think that I could probably work in the morning before everyone gets up and gets going and then spend time with my family. And I've done that before on many, many occasions. But then I started thinking about the things I would do during that week. Things like dropping a new podcast episode and doing the marketing for it. Now, those aren't bad things. They're good, better things, and they could actually make a pretty good difference. But then I got thinking, who's really going to be paying attention to that kind of stuff during that week? So I decided that it wasn't the best thing I could be doing. I decided to say no to a good thing and focus on something that is better or best. Now, another example, if you're working on your personal or professional development plan for next year, think about how this might apply there. You can list a whole bunch of good things to do that might help you make some progress, or you can start at the top and figure out what things will make the biggest difference, the best things, and put those into your MVP first, and then work from there. And this doesn't apply just to annual planning, but can even be applied to your daily prioritization work. I also want you to think for a second about delegation. If you're in a leadership position, this ability to say no to things that don't matter most is critical. It's not that the good or better things can be ignored. They probably still need to get done, but there are many benefits if you as a leader focus on the things that matter most. The first benefit is that those things that make the biggest difference will get the attention, time, and resources they need or deserve. And second, and many people won't think about this, by saying no to certain things, you give others the opportunity to step up and learn and grow. Like I said a minute ago, those good and better things may still need to get done, but maybe others can do them. And maybe they would actually benefit and grow from that opportunity. And part of being a leader is knowing when someone else could benefit from an assignment or even do the assignment better than you could. It's just something to think about. Now, if you want more on this, I've talked about it in previous episodes, so you can go back and check out my thoughts on delegation. Now, the third reason you want to do this is that you set the example for others to follow. By saying no to good things and focusing on what matters most, you set the tone. And you make it okay for others to not get consumed by busy work and to focus as well. You make it okay for them to say no to the things that will get in the way of the most important things. Now, in all of this, there needs to be a balance. I'd love to focus on the things that matter most all the time and let everything else slide. But that's not how life works, just like chores, right? So like I always say, and I can't go an episode without using this word, be deliberate, there it is, about your choices. Know when you need to choose the best and push aside some of the good things. Now let me just wrap up here by briefly touching on some of the benefits you'll get out of all of this. I don't know that I'm putting these in priority order, and when I think about it, that priority order will probably be different for each of us anyway. Number one, less regret. By focusing first on the things that matter most, I think we'll find that we have less regret on how we spent our time and resources. There will be less days when we'll get to the end and realize we didn't get to our most important things. You know that feeling where like, I was super busy today, I'm exhausted, and you go look at your list and you realize that you didn't touch a single thing that you meant to touch that day. There will be less of those. I'm not saying there won't be any, but there will be less of those. 2, more progress. If we focus on the things that matter most or that will make the biggest difference, then we're going to make more progress. Now, there are a lot of reasons for this one, but one is that we will spend less time on the false progress path and more on the meaningful progress path. If we're deliberate about our choices, then we will find ourselves moving more efficiently down the path of progress towards our most potential instead of just spinning our wheels on that busy work. Now, the third one, which I think we all would agree we want in our life, is less stress. I don't have any scientific basis for saying this. I didn't do studies or anything like that. And I'm not saying no stress. I wish, but I'm not saying no stress. But I do believe that when we get better about this kind of prioritization, we will find less stress in life. This can come in a couple of ways. First, we won't stress about the things that really don't matter. We'll just learn to put them aside and realize I'm focused on bigger, better things. We also won't find our minds consumed by those little things if we're not focusing on them. And second, because we're focusing on and making progress on the things that matter most, we won't stress about the lack of progress there. And that ties into that regret piece. So if we focus on the things that matter most and move down the pathway to our most potential, then we're going to have less stress and less regret. Now, a fourth thing here is that if we do this, we're going to have more time, or at least better use of our time. We really don't get more time. And this is a big one to me. If we get better at this, then I really think we'll find ourselves with more time to focus on the things that truly matter. Similar to stress, if we don't spend our time on all the little things that may not matter, spinning our wheels in the busy work, we'll have time for more important things. And I'm not just talking about the super important things on our development plans, but also things like camping, biking, spending time with family. Those are the kinds of things that are important to me that may or may not end up on a development plan. So if you prioritize things correctly, you can focus on those things that matter most, and you'll have time to do those other things that truly matter that may not be part of that same plan. And then there are many, many more benefits that I just don't have time to mention. So let me just recap those really fast. The benefits you'll get by learning to focus on the things that matter most, the best things, are less regret, more progress, less stress, better availability of time for the things that truly matter to us, and then a whole bunch of others that I don't have time to mention. I think that's it for today. This is probably the shortest episode that I've ever done, but I wanted it to be short and sweet and to the point. With the challenge we have around things like fear of missing out and other societal pressures we have today, I know it may seem counterintuitive to say no in order to get more or to move forward on our paths. But remember that focus isn't only picking the right things to focus on, but saying no to all those things that would be distractions. And by learning to say no to good or better things, we actually give ourselves a much better shot at moving forward down the path to our greatest potential. Now, in wrapping up this series, I hope you'll apply all 4 of these principles to your own assessments in planning for this year. Remember, watch out for comparisons, create that minimum viable plan that's nice and flexible, right? And then we want to make sure that we're focused on the things that will give us meaningful progress, not the false progress. And that means we're going to have to let go in order to make that progress. Let go of the things that we really shouldn't be focused on. Thanks again for sticking with me until the end. And until next week, think about how you can use these principles to make this the year that you make leaps and bounds progress on your path, and how you can lift others to do the same. Thanks again, and let's have a great year.